podcast.
It's time to be liberated from business chaos. Hey, it's Scott Beebe with Business on Purpose podcast. Thanks for joining us. This is another awesome episode in our little series where we're going back to the clients that we're coaching right now and just getting their story. We're doing it as much for our listening pleasure as we are to get their story on audio so they can share it with their teams, they can share it with future clients. But I'm delighted that you could join us. Hey, make sure to go check out mybusinessonpurpose.com. Jesse and Thomas and I have been working really, really hard to get content on mybusinessonpurpose.com that is going to be incredibly relevant to the questions that you have. And so if you just go right there on the homepage, we answer at the time of this recording 7 most challenging questions we get on a regular basis. So I think you'll enjoy those. Anyway, I think you're going to enjoy this conversation with my buddy Sean Supple of Supple Homes out in Menlo Park, Silicon Valley in the Bay Area in California, West Coast. And don't forget to check out mybusinessonpurpose.com. All right, so I'm with my buddy Sean Supple. Had the opportunity to know Sean here for a couple of years, to work with him both in kind of a larger group setting in one of his Builder 20 groups, and then also just getting to know he and his team through working with them with Supple Homes. But there's a whole backstory to Sean Supple that I wanted to kind of get out of him. I wanted to pry out of him. And so Sean, man, thanks for just spending some time with me, get your story on audio.
Thanks for having me, Scott. My pleasure.
All right. And it's early. It's Monday. I can't believe he agreed to this. He's in Menlo Park, West Coast. I'm East Coast, just outside of Savannah and Hilton Head and all that area. So he's up early, ready to rock and roll. So Sean, let's dive in. I just kind of talk a little bit just about the early Sean Supple. So this is 10, 20 years ago, maybe even a little bit of how you grew up, but just kind of give us the early days of Sean Supple.
Yeah, thanks. So I grew up on the East Coast, up in the Boston area, and my family, a fair amount of my family's still there. My parents got divorced when I was 2, so my dad moved out to the San Francisco area, and so from the age of 5, I actually would fly across country and spend 4, 6, 8 weeks during the summertime up in the San Francisco area, and enjoyed it out here. I think we kind of came a second home, I guess. And so when it came time to go to college, I came out to California. I went to UC Santa Barbara, which was a great place to go to college. On the beach, it's a tough place to be in your early 20s. And I did that. Had a great time there. It was as a little side story, was a great place to go to school, I think, because it taught me how to really balance work and play. There was so many opportunities to play there, and it was a party school, also a great academic school. And so really teaching me how to balance the work and the play was a good life lesson because, I was able to do it in 4 years, which is unusual. There, it's usually a 5 or 6 year graduation rate. And so, just prepared me for life. So did that. And then wasn't sure what to do and I knew I wanted to go to a grad school and got talked into going to law school by an uncle, a very successful entrepreneur, business guy, real estate. And he had an MBA from Wharton Business School. And he's told me to, I could read a book and learn about an MBA, but to go to law school because it would help me just in business more so than a business degree. So I ended up coming up north back to the Bay Area and went to Santa Clara University and got my law degree. Not necessarily wanting to be a lawyer, but again, great learning experience, really just teaching you how to think differently. It's a whole other language and mindset, the law. And so it has helped me throughout life. Even though I didn't practice law, I take it back. I practiced law. I passed the California bar exam, hardest thing I ever did. And then practiced for about 1.5 years, determined it wasn't for me, and actually got into real estate, became a real estate broker, trying to do something else different. Did that for about a year and a half here in Menlo Park. Again, realized it wasn't for me. There was a big difference in both law and real estate that I determined. There's a big difference in law. There's a difference between what's the law is, what's legal, and what you personally think is right or wrong.
Mm.
And if my personal viewpoint differed than the law, I had a very hard time trying to argue. I felt like I was, was lying, and I'm a terrible liar. And so I couldn't sell the case. I couldn't represent my client or whatever if I didn't believe in it. And the kind of the same thing with real estate, trying to get people to buy a house that maybe it's not the best house for them, but you needed the deal to close to pay your rent. So I got out of that and came into construction just kind of randomly, was lost in life. I was about 30, I think, at the time, about 2002 and 2001 maybe. And had a friend out to dinner and said her husband was a contractor. Hey, can I come bang some nails? And started on my path at the bottom floor as a laborer. So, and here we go.
Wow. What, Sean, did you ever, in that transition, did you ever feel like that you would get to the point where you were actually going to be the general contractor, or did you feel like, this is what I want to do. I want to get out. I want to work with my hands. I want to frame houses and do all that. So was it a step to something different, or was it just, no, I was content where I was at?
It kind of immediately grabbed me, the construction. I liked, and literally, I started as a laborer, $10 an hour, cash, demoing drywall. I showed up in my BMW, right, from working in real estate and law, and I love the physicality of it. I'd come home at the end of the day just being physically exhausted, and then kind of the instant gratification. You got to see what you did. You had something, something concrete that you saw that you built or tore down. So I like that from the beginning, and just really read every how-to book or magazine or TV show, or just trying to learn as a sponge. So, and I just ran with it, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So you're showing up. I've just got this mental image. You're showing up in your BMW on site. You're framing houses. You're installing a variety of different things. You're doing all that stuff. What was the progression? You now own a successful custom home building company. I mean, you guys are building homes in Menlo Park. They don't make a lot of small homes in Menlo Park. These are multi-million dollar, thousands of square feet, very customized homes that you're building. How did you get from you were showing up banging nails to the point to where now you're overseeing this entire company?
It was a journey, and I wasn't even skilled enough to start framing, Scott. My first thing was doing demo, was tearing stuff down because I had no skills. So, like I said, I learned on the job. It was a small remodeling firm when I started, and my boss, the owner, wasn't a particularly good businessman. He was actually pretty terrible, but he was a good craftsman, and so we did a lot of stuff in-house. So I got to learn hands-on how to do framing and tile and plumbing and drywall and electrical. And so moved up from there. I worked for him for about 3.5 years, and then decided it was time to go on my own. I applied and got my own general contractor's license, and then had a neighbor's coworker was my first job, was a master bath remodel. And I did all the work myself. So it was me, myself, and I.
Wow.
Right. And just slowly started like that. I had a master bath remodel, and then it was a kitchen remodel for a family friend, and that turned into, let's do the bathroom now. Then another neighbor's bathroom, and another friend's. And so it was slowly but surely, the jobs just kind of got bigger and bigger. Ended up hiring some people, one at a time, a laborer and then a carpenter, and progressed through. Got some leads from some real estate people to do some bigger remodels in Menlo Park. And that really kind of started our journey in Menlo Park, I think. And now, to your point, now we're building mostly just new construction, custom homes, in the 3, 4, 5, 7,000 square foot range, right here in the Menlo Park, Atherton market.
Sean, there's going to be people that listen to this podcast and go, wow, that's an amazing run, you said 3.5 years. One of the things I'm very sensitive to is when somebody says 3.5 years. 3.5 years is a long time when you're in the 3.5 years. It's a short time when you're outside looking back, as you are right now. But I want you to try to, if you can, remember those days when you were just showing up and you were demoing work, and then you learned a little bit of carpentry, and then you learned and all these other little disciplines. There had to be some excitement in it. There also had to be some frustration in it. What were the elements of excitement for you during those, 2 o'clock on a Wednesday afternoon when you're demoing something? And what was the frustration on a Thursday morning at 9:37 a.m. when you're installing some cabinets?
Yeah, first, I guess what comes to mind is the frustration, I guess, first was as I was moving up the ranks and was really starting to kind of run jobs for the company and my boss, uh, I was feeling like I wasn't being adequately compensated or appreciated. He was never there, was off vacationing in Tahoe, and I was doing all the work and had all the stress. Was up, couldn't fall asleep at night because worried about this and that. And that was the impetus for me to well, I just got to go on my own. Like I'm doing all the work and all the stress, but not getting the benefits of, being the owner.
Yeah.
So that stands out for sort of, the downside of the negative. The positives, I think, was being able to, just I guess some more background. I come from a family of entrepreneurs. Almost everybody on both sides of my family, and it's a big family, uncles and aunts and brothers and sisters have all almost been entrepreneurs. So it wasn't even a hurdle for me to think, oh, I can't do something on my own. It's just kind of was in my family's DNA. So that was never a roadblock of thinking, I think. So I always had that potential or that possibility.
So this idea of just being able to kind of look at things and realizing, no, I mean, if I need to go generate income, I can go generate income. That was a confidence you felt like you had?
Yeah, I did. It just wasn't something that wasn't a roadblock because of all my family. They've all sort of done their own thing in totally different businesses, but everyone's been kind of an entrepreneur. So
Yeah.
it was just kind of normal for me.
What a gift. We've been talking recently about putting together a program just for students, and especially for students who don't grow up in homes where there's entrepreneurial flair, spirit, because we do need to have courage lent to us, and you had that courage lent to you by your family. So you start kind of working this up. You get your own GC license, then you get a bathroom, and then you get maybe a kitchen, and then you get some bigger things start to coming in, and you've worked your way up until now. Just knowing the back end of a home building company, and for those who are not in the construction space, you can just imagine, just look around your house, look around your apartment, look around wherever, all those little things, the nails, the trim, the carpet, the padding under the carpet, the vents, the outlets, all of those things have to be thought of, and they have to be thought of sequentially. And that's just the operational side of things. That's not even including the administrative side, the sales side, the marketing side. Sean, when you got started, the entrepreneurial gas tank was full, but what did chaos look like for you day to day? What were you feeling as you were getting this thing off the ground?
It was overwhelming as I look back, because as I mentioned, it was me, myself, and I, right? So it was always, and this is I would be any small business, right? When you're the only employee, quote unquote, if you're not doing something, it's not getting done. And so there was always, that hanging over my head on weekends and nights, and I could always be working, whether it would be on paperwork or invoicing or estimating or something, because if I wasn't doing it, I wasn't getting done. And so that was a stress. And I would look back now, and I think as we're talking, one of the big turning points for the business was when I hired Margarita here, who's been now probably 8 or 9 years as, my office admin, bookkeeper, just company extraordinaire, handling all the business functions. And that took all those things off of my plate and really off of my mind, right? So I could have a break on the weekend and be able to not just constantly think, God, I got to be doing this. So as I look back, that was the big, was hiring some people that, you could trust and really could take some of the things off your plate.
How did you get to the point where you could trust Margarita? I'm sure part of this has to do with your entrepreneurial spirit, and you're more prone to get those things off of your plate. But when Margarita first came on, what'd you tell her?
Well, we worked at this time. At that time, we're working out of my house. Yeah, we worked out of my house. We had a bedroom converted, so we were kind of working side by side a little bit. And she had some construction, different type of construction company, but more commercial experience. So she had a little bit of knowledge. It was a lot of hands-on. As you're training people, it's hard work. You have to be careful to take the time to train them. And I fell into this trap. Absolutely, is sometimes it's just easier to just continue to do it yourself, right? Because you don't want to take the time to try to train somebody properly, because you can just do it yourself. So to focus, to give the time to train her. It's all about personality, I think, too, as far as just the trust. You start to learn enough pretty quickly what someone's trustworthiness is, I guess. And she seemed like she was trustworthy from the beginning. So,
yeah. Well, you've certainly developed a great relationship both with Margarita and some of your other team members as well, and how you've leveraged those relationships and really, really been generous in doing that. Sean, one of the things you're really good at, and you mentioned this a little bit before, but I've noticed in you that I've noticed other people struggle with you mentioned learning this at college. But the balance of play and the balance of work, and there are seasons of both. And I've watched you go through these seasons, particularly in the last year, because at the time of this recording, we're still in COVID world. We're 6 months into it, actually, at the time of this recording. I probably shouldn't have said that out loud. Kind of make you weep all over again. But the reality is you've always done a good job since I've known you of being able to balance that work and play. How do you do that today, with kind of the bigness or the sizeness of the company, and yet still maintain that playfulness?
It's tough, I think. And it's a learning experience. I have a lot more growth and work to do on it, and I think it comes down to delegation, and having that trust. And that comes back to just having the right team members. Right, you've got to trust in them, and they've got to be the right people that you can delegate to, and be able to focus on the things that you need to, or that I need to.
You've been working really hard to try to systematically work on your business as best you can. You mentioned your people. You've been doing a great job of delegating, all of those sorts of things that I've had the privilege of being able to see, kind of a front row seat to. But talk about that. What did you do to start systematically owning your business instead of allowing it to own you? What were some of the mindset things? What were some of the realities? And you're not there yet. You're still very much on the journey, but you are much farther down the road, certainly than you were when you started out. So what was some of the mindset shift for you to really begin to pass off the day-to-day and try to step back from some of those things so that you could focus on other things that you're really, really gifted at?
Well, I wish I knew. I wish I had the answer, because I'm still struggling with that. But I think it comes down to where the first question is, where do I want my business to be, and what do I want my role to be in that business? Trying to come up with that clarity, I think, is the first step, and then from there, can develop what roles can I hire someone else to do, or delegate to someone else to do, so that I can focus on the things that best support the business with my skill set, and or best support what I want to do in life, play or whatever. So coming up with, and you've been instrumental in trying to help us define roles in the company, and processes, and who can do what, and identifying needs, and how do we fill those needs? And so I think it's always going to be a work in progress, and we are early in the journey.
Well, you have certainly made great progress. Where do you feel like, if you were to look back, sometimes it's good to reflect, and sit and just kind of remember a little bit as you look back. If you were to look where you're at now, where Supple Homes is now, versus where you were at when you took that first bathroom, or started to even built your first full home, Where are you at now versus where you were at then?
From a business standpoint,
Yeah.
or well, we're at a completely different place. I said it was a single employee me company, versus now we have 8 employees, and so obviously the growth. We moved out of my house. We now are in an office, and are actually looking to expand more space, and looking to hire additional people. So we're at a completely different place, both from organizationally, location wise, and volume. We currently, we have 6 or 7 houses that we're building, and so all new construction. So it's a completely different. We've grown exponentially. It's been 15 years, so it's been a slow journey, but it's we've gotten there.
But I think that's what I want to make sure that we always highlight is the time that it's taken. You've invested 15 years. We're in a culture where everybody wants to 10x. Not everybody, that's unfair. Where a lot of people want to 10x everything, in a week, in a month, in 3 months. And what you've done is you've built a tree over time. It's slowly grown, and to watch what you've been able to do through that, and more importantly, the people you've been able to empower, I think has been really, really great. You mentioned Margarita being there for about 9 years now. As soon as the COVID crisis hit, it was really, really awesome to be able to look and see a guy in Sean Supple who was able to look at his team and go, "Hey, I'm going to do everything that I can to make sure that we float, that we can make this work." And so, you built something not only that you can draw value from, but you built something that a lot of other people, whether they're your full-time people or your contractors or whatever, has been able to draw value from as well. So there's people all over the Silicon Valley, basically, who can draw value from what you've been able to build. So you've climbed this mountain. The journey has been really, really interesting to take you from the East Coast and well, the Northeast to the far Southwest on the West Coast, to just a super fun college experience, to a lawyer, to basically a demo and driving a BMW, to the point where now you're building custom homes for in this really unique place in history right now. I mean, you're in Silicon Valley, you're in Menlo Park, not just in Silicon Valley, but specifically in Menlo Park. So you're ground zero to so much that's going on, and you're surrounded by people who have climbed all sorts of mountains, business, personal, tech, whatever. What about for you? What's the next mountain for Sean Supple? Could be Supple Homes, whatever it is, but what do you feel like is the next mountain to climb?
Really, to continue to grow Supple Homes, is the next mountain. Is to ideally get it to a point and have successful enough processes and people. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, Dave, who's been instrumental in all of this. My employee, he's been with me for 14 years, and he started at ground zero. I actually played softball with him, was how we met. He was a mechanic, car mechanic, and unhappy, and so I plucked him, and he started on the ground floor just as I did, and worked his way up through the ranks, and now is my lead project manager, director of construction. So continuing to empower him, I guess, to let me focus on other aspects of the business. That's the next mountain, I think, for me to climb. Mm-hmm. And expansion. We've talked about expanding into some commercial work. And so we've hired a commercial project manager. We're working on a private school, and going to explore expanding into doing that. Mm-hmm. So
what do you, from a people standpoint, because we get questions all the time about the delegation, and I feel like you've started to do a good job with this. I felt like it was something before where there was almost a pride, and not in a negative pride, but just a general pride of being able to do things yourself. And honestly, you're just a nice guy. And so not feeling like, you need to overburden either Margarita or Dave or any of the other team members that you have. How have you gotten to the point now where you're really genuinely delegating some things to a Dave, to a Margarita, to any of these new superintendents that you've brought on?
It's a process for me, because you're right. I do. I don't know what it is. If it's as you mentioned, if it's a pride or, I can do it all. I feel like, and so trying to delegate, but it comes down to a confidence and a trust in the right people. That's what it all comes back to, hiring the right people. And, I emphasize now that, really taking the time in the hiring process as we're hiring more people to get it right. Don't just hire the first person that comes in the door, because you don't know what you're getting. So to really go through a deliberate process of hiring and background checking and, meeting the family and all those kind of things that will make it more likely that you'll find the right person. Because it's key. We have eight employees, and maybe it's 9 now, and so there's not a lot of room for error, right? You can't really swing and miss. Otherwise, it's going to be you've got a lot of makeup to do. Ground.
Yeah. Well, you've done a great job of being very methodical about bringing people in, letting them know up front, hey, this is a long process. So as long as you're willing to kind of put in the grind to go with us, then we would love to continue to have that conversation. You've done a really, really nice job with that. Sean, one of the things we value is just wisdom, is growing in wisdom, learning wisdom, hearing from the wisdom of other people. And wisdom, not meaning that any of us are the smartest guys in the room. It's just that, some people have shared some things with us. For you, when you look back, is there a piece of wisdom that you've learned that somebody shared with you that really kind of it's a hallmark for you? It constantly comes back to this for you. But is there a piece of wisdom that you could share with us that's been instrumental for you?
That's a tough one to narrow something down. What comes to mind, I guess, is in going back to, I guess, my family and growing up in a family of entrepreneurs, and my mom, maybe more specifically, just always giving me the mindset and the confidence and the push to, I could do whatever I wanted. I had the capability, whatever I wanted to put my mind to, go for it. There was nothing that was holding me back but me. And so, that just sort of mindset that, sure, I can go do this. Why not? And then go try to do it. So that mindset of being able to do whatever I wanted, unrealistically or not, was a good mindset to have.
It's a great mindset. And it's one that right now is incredibly appropriate to be reminded of. Is there's a lot of challenge right now, but there's also a lot of opportunity. And with that entrepreneurial mindset, realizing that, no, I could go do that if I wanted to do it. You've shown us a great example of what that looks like, to start from with no master plan. And I think, Sean, that's one of my biggest takeaways from a guy like you, is you really didn't have a master plan. You've set visions along the way, but starting out, you weren't the kid in 11th grade that said, hey, I'm going to grow up and be a blank. And you've kind of just followed, as Michelle Morton would say, followed the breadcrumbs, and to the point now where you're impacting a lot of people, and it's really been a joy. So, hey, Sean, this has been fun. I love hearing the story. I've learned some things I didn't even know, and that's always fun for me to be able to do. But why don't you share your website with everybody? So if anybody's got any questions, or just they want to stalk you a little bit, figure out, who is Sean Supple? Where can they find you online?
Yeah, thanks. So it's supplehomesinc.com, supplehomesinc.com.
All right, and there it is. Sean, thanks for joining us, man.
Thank you, Scott. Pleasure.